quick story by my grandmother about Christmas and when my sisters met me after I was born in 1957. That's my grandma, Lucille McCaslin. She was born in 1903 in England and moved to Canada when she was about 6. Here's what life was like when she was young and Christmas.
Well, we got electric lights in the world. We got aeroplanes, we got televisions, we got radios, and tape recorders. All things that they didn't have when Grandma was a little girl.
What was Christmas like?
Buy chocolate bars. And you didn't get very much candy, so at Christmas time when you got some candy and some nuts that perhaps came from a faraway country, especially if you lived up in Canada, they didn't grow nuts in Canada, so they have to come from far away. And when I was a little girl, there weren't very many orange trees, even in California. So, and even if there were, it was a long way to ship them up to Canada, so you didn't get very many oranges in Canada. And so at Christmas time, if you got an orange, that was special. And if you lived in Western Canada, where I lived, they didn't grow apples. So the apples had to come, it took 2 or 3 days or maybe a week for apples to come, and then maybe they'd freeze on the way. So you didn't get too many apples, so if you got an apple at Christmas, that was very, very special. And you were the happiest people in the world.
My 2-year-old sister stayed with my grandmother over Christmas right before I was born, and she, of course, described the Christ child and what the meaning of Christmas was. This is when they came home and saw me for the first time.
When Marjorie and Beverly and Ruth came up to see Grandma, their mama did not have a little baby. But while they was away, a nice little baby came, and that was their little brother Jerry. And he was a cute little fellow. And when we went into the house, there he was lying on the floor in your grandma's front room, and the sun was shining on him. And Marjorie and Beverly clapped their hands and they said, "Oh, the baby Jesus." They thought their brother Jerry was the baby Jesus because they'd seen all about babies. Now, Grandma had told them that they had a little baby, and she had even shown them a picture. But I think they still thought that Jerry was the baby Jesus. And they were very happy to be home again, and they did know their mama, and they did know their daddy.
My grandmother passed away in 2001, but I've got literally hours of tape with messages that she shared with her grandkids and great-grandkids, stories of her life. And this was just a little bit, part of what helped shape me. So, after listening to some of those tapes, I thought it'd be a good idea that I actually record my own mother and perhaps some of her stories. I have fond memories of time with my grandmother, from visiting us in Phoenix to going up to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Buffalo Pound Lake, driving in that camper, all 7 of us packed in. What a great time, fishing in the lake, catching yellow perch and northern pike, climbing over the hills. Part of, I guess, what gave me my sense of adventure. Here my mom discusses a little of her mother. Okay, Mom, I'm taking a video of you.
Okay. Well, I want to say I have a wonderful family. They all love me and I love them.
Well, I love you and
God's in his heaven, all's right in the world.
Let me ask.
In spite of COVID.
That's true. Let me ask you, you're 94 years old.
I'm 94, and in June I'll be 95.
Tell me a little bit about your mother.
My mother was a wonderful person.
I remember going up to Moose Jaw and Buffalo Pound Lake, and your mom was always, she'd play with the kids and sing and laugh, and your sister and even you when you were younger seemed to be much more strict and serious than your mom.
My sister felt like it was her job to look after me and anybody that belonged to me. And she continued to do that even when I was an adult. And she would tell people what they needed to do. And I think they thought she was bossy, but she was just taking care of things.
Well, and grandmas and grandpas are supposed to be able to spoil the grandkids.
Yeah.
Where the parents and so forth, they have to
I never did spoil my grandchildren. I did my best to try and help them.
Well, and that's something I remember about Grandma too, is she was always a teacher.
Yes.
And you're always a teacher. You're always trying to, everything you say and do, there's some little lesson in it.
Yeah, that's right.
But what's some early memory you have of your mom?
Well, I remember one day when I was just a little wee toddler. I was walking along outside with my sister. We'd been somewhere, I don't know where, and we were walking home. And I sat down and I wouldn't move. She begged me, she tried to pull me, she did everything. She finally said, well, I'm just going to leave you here. So I said I'd come. And as soon as she started to walk away, I sat right down again. She finally left me and went home and got my mother. And my mother came out there and she said, on your feet, little girl. And I did. And another time when I was a little bit older, I'd already started school. And I came home and I saw my mother walking down the street. And I didn't know where she was going and why was she leaving. And I started to call out to her, mother, mother. And she didn't even turn around. And I finally caught up to her. Wasn't my mother at all. But I know how I felt. And another time, I had been a naughty girl. I don't know what I'd done. But my mother finally said, well, if you're going to be that way, I don't want to have you around.
Wow.
And she packed a little bag for me and told me to sit on the front doorstep, and she would call the orphanage to come and get me. And that was the most terrible thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Well, what's a good memory you have of your mom?
Well, after that, my mother felt terrible. She was just a young mother, and she had no idea that it would affect me that way, to be taken away from those I loved. And she learned a lesson from it, and so did I. I was always careful to never let any of my children think that I didn't want them anymore. Of course, I always wanted them. And she was in charge of the Girl Guides. She was in the president of the ladies' club. She was in the boys' club. She was the president of the ladies that worked with the boy YMCA club.
Oh, okay.
And she was always leading, not just in our family, but things in the city. Everywhere she was always a leader and a helper. And one time she lost her voice. She couldn't talk at all. And the doctor didn't know what happened. He couldn't help her. And she started to call us by whistling. She had a special whistle for each one of us children. And we lived right across the street from the school, and we often went back there to play on the playground, and she would whistle when she wanted us to come home, and we could hear her whistle.
Do you remember what your whistle was?
What?
Do you remember what the whistle she whistled?
No, I don't. And then one day we had actually even moved from that house to another house. And she was still whistling for us. And she went to the Girl Guides, and we lived quite a distance away from the Girl Guides, and it was very cold out. She walked as far as Loveridge's house, and Dorothy Loveridge joined her and walked the rest of the way. And after the meeting and they were coming home, they went into Dorothy's house, and Mrs. Loveridge said to my mother, "You look half frozen. Let me get you a hot drink." And my mother drank that hot drink, and her voice came back. She never lost it again. She was always helping people. I really loved and still love my mother.
Hopefully this glimpse into my grandmother and my mother will help you understand why they're such an important part of my life, why I love them, and how they helped me become the person I am. Never take your loved ones for granted, and enjoy them and appreciate them while they're here. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Love you, Mom. Bye-bye.